Biggest mistake business owners make is thinking they need to reinvent the wheel.
Most people don't realize that all the successful companies are running the same core systems.
That's why we're hosting the Home Service Hoorah, September 7th, 8th, and 9th in beautiful Pensacola Beach, Florida.
We're giving away the exact systems, playbooks, and operations we use to scale to multi-seven figures.
You're learning from real business owners that have been there and done that.
People who are in your exact position and scaled their business without losing everything.
Tickets will sell out, so register now at homeservicehoorah.com. Again, that's homeservicehoorah.com.
Running a home service business is hard. So how is it that some people make it look so easy? Well, we'll tell you. This is the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. It's always good to hear the wins that successful contractors have. But have you ever thought that the best advice would be to hear about the speed bumps they encountered, the mistakes they've made along the way? We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want you to be successful and avoid the mistakes others have made. Let's get this party started. Welcome to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Now your host, Justin Deese.
Welcome back to another episode of Freedom Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Deese, and today we are hanging out with Josh Martin from FieldSpark. And we're going to talk to Josh a little bit today about what FieldSpark is, what it does, and how it can make a major impact on your business. And we're also going to talk a little bit about, leadership is a thing that we talk about here, and scaling is some things that we talk about here. So we're going to dive into a little bit of that as well. But Josh, thanks for coming and hanging out, man.
Yeah, very excited to be on the podcast, Justin. It's been great to get to know you over the couple different shows we are actually bumped into each other at. So I think we'll have a good time today.
Absolutely. And, live events and shows, they're so exhausting sometimes, but man, you end up meeting really cool people and you end up making really good connections because, you're there together. You can shake hands, you can break bread, you can, just get to know each other. So yeah, this past year, you and I spent, I don't know, might have been 3 or 4 shows that we ended up being at the same shows and getting to hang out. And I got to learn a little bit about FieldSpark, which is why I'm really excited to let the listeners know a little bit about it. I know FieldSpark is fairly new, but I don't want to spoil it. You're the expert in this, so I'm going to let you tell the audience a little bit more about what FieldSpark is and just all the down and dirty on it.
Got it. Well, I'll try to break it into chunks and please, stop and ask questions. And first and foremost, what we wanted to have is a software that can help people train your folks so they can get out in the field faster, be better in the field, coach them after they get out in the field and you've trained somebody. And this is a big distinction for me. There's more of the performance management piece, right? So I've showed John how to do this. But if you don't reinforce those behaviors and those scripts and the different things that you want John to say over and over again, a lot of times it slips, right? So really creating consistency in your, with your technicians and really your sales force that are out there. And really the anticipation is this will help you grow your business. I know especially in the home services world, I believe like 90% of the companies are under like $10 million, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they want to scale and grow, so they're moving from that solopreneur into like a business with a couple employees, and then they want to grow it from there. That scaling, a lot of times there's a trust component that stops it. And I've been around long enough where I've seen that happen, right? They don't feel comfortable that John, Joe, Bill, Susan will do what they want them to do out in the field. So they want something to ensure that the quality is going to happen. So that's kind of the big thing that we want to get into with this software.
Very cool. So is the software focused on the technician side of it?
Very much so. It's for field services individuals, so individuals that are going to be out in the home, whether it be in the garages, in the living rooms with people talking to them about the services they're going to be provided. But that's really that second piece. That's more on the coaching piece. One of the things that we really want to lean into, and with our AI or with our role play, is training people before they even get out in the field. So I know different organizations, they might have a 2-week training program, a 1 month, a 3 month. The faster that you can get people out there and doing their job, the better it is, A, for the company, and quite honestly, for the technician. I know a lot of these growth-oriented companies, you have some type of incentive program for people to go out and generate business for you. That's how they put food on the table, right? So if we can get the technicians out there, get them competent out in the world, more confident, faster, it's just good for everybody. It helps. We see it help with retention rates with technicians, right? There's a lot of turnover, and it really helps with the burden of training. I know I did a lot of sales training back in the day. I led sales teams in a different industry, and I would go out and a lot of the times I would take somebody that maybe isn't used to selling. They understood the service that we provided, but they didn't know all the nuances of selling. It's I would say it's not like an art. There's a science behind it. It's like anything.
Right. It's a recipe for sure.
100%. So you might know how to, fix a broken pipe, or really anything, that's in the trades, but you might not understand the nuances and might never have been trained on how to actually sell. And we focus on consultative selling, right? So it's not this drive something down somebody's throat. We're not trying to dupe anybody. That's not what salespeople do. It's really understanding problems and providing solutions to your customers.
Yeah, I think techs a lot of times when they hear the 4-letter word, they get all weird about it. Oh, sales. Oh, I'm not a sales guy. I don't wear a pinky ring. I'm not, and they forget that, no offense to anybody wears a pinky ring. But anytime I think of used car sales, when I think like pinky ring, slick back hair, it's
right,
just in my brain. That's what it goes to. But, really sales is about educating, right? And you can't make a decision for a customer, but you can educate them on what different decisions look like and how it can affect their lives. And that's really the point of set, which we should just call it something else besides sales, but that's okay. So one of the features that your tool has that immediately when you and I first talked, and I think we might have been at, I don't remember which event, doesn't matter. But the thing that I went, holy cow, this is really cool is, and you sort of mentioned it before, but the role play piece. Will you walk us through and walk the listener through what that piece looks like? Because to me, when you said that, I went, oh, that's a game changer.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Now, I will say with the software, we have feature sets, right? And I'm back to I'm a salesperson, but I do it the right way. We want to set proper expectations with people. So, right now, the feature of the role play is really helping people understand how to close at the end of a deal. And really, it's just getting people comfortable asking for the sale. Hey, I'm here. I noticed this might be an additional problem. Is this something you want to do today? It's easy for me. I've been doing it for 25 years. But for somebody that's not used to doing that, role-playing a scenario like that over and over again before you get out in the front of the field in front of a customer, really, it creates a lot of comfort, right? It also creates consistency as well. So I remember back in the day, I'd be training folks. I would say, hey, this is how we're going to, potentially close a deal. I said, cool, you're going to be the salesperson. I'm going to be the customer. Let's do this. And we're just going to role play this specific part of your conversation, right? Not the hour-long you checking everything out, but just right here. In this, it really helps with that. So that is, I think, probably the coolest feature. Right now, again, the role play is focused on those closing type of conversations, but a lot of things that are in the sales community, more of qualifying. Asking questions is an important part of selling. To your point earlier, people think of selling as this bad thing, this manipulative, hair slick back, pinky ring type of deal. My hair is kind of slicked back a little bit now that I look at myself, but it's not. The way that I look at it is, you're there to help somebody with a problem, right?
Yeah, they didn't call you because they were bored. Nobody in the home service space got a phone call and a customer's like, you know what? I really want to hang out with a ABC tech from ABC company and have them come over and just kick the tires and look at stuff. I know sometimes it does feel like customers may just be kicking tires, but they're calling for a reason, and they weren't bored. So you do have to educate them. So one of the things I want to bring up on the role play side of it is, we talk about this on the show a lot. When you're doing sales training, role play is one of those things that technicians absolutely hate at the beginning. Like that's just, they do. And I know for us in our companies, we quit calling it that. We just call it practice. And people seem to, like, their blood pressure seemed to come down just a little bit. We're like, no, we're just going to practice what we're doing. Same thing. Words matter because sales words matter. But, I think about, Tony Robbins, and he's got a very famous quote of saying, repetition is the mother of all skill. And that's what this is. Like, it's just that repetition of practice, to where when you go in front of a customer, it's no different than playing sports, right? Like you hit 1,000 baseballs before you ever get on the plate and face an actual pitcher. It's really no different. Although a lot of times, technicians don't like it and they get kind of clammy and nervous, some of them, about it. But this tool allows them to do it kind of at their own pace and not in front of the entire room. Not to say that you shouldn't still do it in front of the room. You should be. But for this tool, I think it's a really good part for those techs that want to get better. They now have a kind of like a sandbox where they can go practice. And correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't it grade them and kind of give them some feedback?
Yeah, no, and as the feature set improves, again, having longer, bigger conversations and all the different nuances and the categories of selling, if you will be worked into this role play software. But the intent of the software is you put in maybe your some people say sales script, but the way the software is broken down is there's categories. So say you want somebody to build rapport with a customer, then you want them to ask 3 questions about their home, and then after that, you have to present pricing. Like there's a process, if you will, to follow. So the software is made up of each category that has requirements. So we want somebody to, again, compliment somebody on the house. Since there is that fancy technology in the background, you don't say compliment on your house. Like you might say that, wow, this is a beautiful home. The software is able to tell from a sentiment standpoint, they have complimented, on the home. And that's some of the magic that goes on in the background. But for me, one of the biggest things is consistency. And you think about actually scaling a business, or even in a small, like your day to day. I remember I would role play with somebody, and it'd be a little different every time. And even my feedback might be different every time, right? So I'd have, again, we'll go back to John, Bill, and Susan, and I would role play and give feedback to John one way, and I would role play and give feedback to Jill a different way. All of a sudden, they're like, well, Josh told me to do this. Well, he told me to do this. It's a little different, right? So some of those nuances, this really helps at scale. I will say this will never replace, to your point, like that last 90%. Being in front of a person, shaking a hand, AI can't do that, right? Or just software in general can't do that. But I think this really does create consistency. Where I saw it get really interesting, especially if people are in that, heavy scaling standpoint, is when you have multiple markets and you have multiple people actually doing the coaching or the training. It takes its own little nuance and whatnot. And this really helps you understand that the quality is going to stay the same across your organization as an owner. And it creates consistency for those individuals. So when they're talking at the water cooler or at a company event, you're talking about the same things. You're using the same language. Sometimes things tweak the words that are used. I saw this with a company that grew. I started with them about 11 million. I think they're 4 billion now with a B. In 8 years, they grew to about 800 million. It was because they had incredible and almost flawless training, and they did a good job of coaching and reinforcing all that training after the fact. Everything was super, super tight. And I think this really will enable people to experience some growth like that.
Well, and most companies, right? So you focus on training, right? So let's say company spends an hour a week, right? And they're serious about their training. They have a good plan. and that's good, but then you release them into the wild. And without having some sort of technology, there's not a trust but verify. And then what ends up happening is however many number of trucks you have on the road ends up being how many brands you have. And that's a problem with consistency. And I know, you know, some business owners are like, I don't want to be corporate. I don't want to be whatever. But you do want to be consistent. You do want to be profitable. So there's a reason that big companies do certain things, you know, and it's not to say that you got to make everything a duplication of it. But, you know, again, as many trucks as you have tends to be how many brands you have out there until you start figuring out how to trust but verify what you've trained to make sure it's working. And really, that's one of the beautiful things about AI that we all have now is that there is ways to do, you know, if you're not doing this, really the OG way to do it is look at reviews.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look at your close rate. Look at your average ticket, right? Like there's a couple metrics, but this is a totally different ballgame when you're looking at it going, okay, I can see that Jimmy, when he goes out, he's not following the product. He's not following the script. He's not doing what he's supposed to do. And because of that, now his average ticket is low. He's not selling. And now it's a much easier way to coach because now you have the actual information. You're not going, hey, this one time you did this one thing. Now you're going, hey, at Miss Smith's house, these are the 5 steps you missed. And what can I do to help you? I think it's pretty incredible to be able to do that.
Here's the crazy thing I also realized, Justin, because I think there is a sense of folks, and we've seen this, right? Some people are like, I don't want something listening to me all the time. You know, and it's that I completely understand that. But what we've noticed is some people will have the recordings. They won't follow the script, right? They'll do something new, but their tickets are higher on average, and they're actually closing more business. And all of a sudden, we've captured that. And we said, oh, maybe we should tweak our process a little bit, right?
That's good.
You know, and that you know, to me, I've again, 20 years ago out in the field doing kind of the ride-alongs with folks, you would hear people talk, and I was like, where'd that come from? I didn't teach you how to do that, but that was fantastic. And I would make it a point to drive it out to my team. So this just gives you transparency. You know, people are afraid of control. That's not what we're looking for here. Transparency so we can create something that makes people successful. Because if you're, you know, every company is people, process, and technology, right? And tech on the scaling side is super, super important. Your people make your company, though. So if we can enable
100%.
the individuals that are out in front of your customers to be better, all right, that's a win-win-win. That's what everybody's looking for.
Yeah, and your techs, typically their fear of this type of technology is micromanagement, right? Like
100%.
I don't want somebody constantly listening to me. Guess what? It's happening. Whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
You know, how many times do you talk about something and it shows up in your Facebook or Instagram feed? Like you're being listened to. So, you know, that's just part of the world we live in now. But it is a tool that owners, like if owners are utilizing this technology, and they should be, they're investing in their people and they're giving them the tools to make it better. I do want to say this, and I'd love your input on this because you've been in other organizations. I've seen companies utilize this technology and be very, very successful, and I've seen ones that have not been very successful. In my opinion, typically the ones that are very, very successful use it as a winning tool. The ones that haven't been weaponize the information that comes from it. So they're like beating them with a hammer when they didn't do something right versus celebrating what they did right. All right. So for the owners out there listening, we give technicians a ton of things to do. Really and truly, we do. Now, we have technology, whether it be your software that kind of helps guide them step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. But we do give them a lot of tools. So I think the people that are the most successful using this tool are going to be the ones that are using it as a coaching opportunity, not a constant correction, because that's how people end up not wanting to talk about it or want to use it or leaving and going to a company that they know doesn't have that kind of technology.
Well, and speaking of the tech a little bit more, it's probably a good call out, Justin. So when we get more into the coaching side, once we've gotten through the role play, yes, it listens to the conversations like most of the things, do out there these days. But when you get the review of the conversation, when that goes back to the sales manager, it points out not just the problems, right? It points out the successes. And our software does a really good job of actually breaking those two down. To your point, so it's on topic, but it's off topic. My wife is a behavior analyst, right?
Okay.
So what she works in basically training and shaping behaviors, which is the end goal here. We want this to feel natural. Tom Brady didn't think about where to throw the ball; he reacted, right? So what works the best there is reinforcement. You did a great job. Please do that again. So beating people with a stick where it's needed at some point in time is not really, it can't be all the focus. And I think to your point, the folks that are using are really honestly creating a good culture, a successful culture. They're spending just as much and more time actually reinforcing the right behaviors than they are trying to, be upset with people. Because nobody likes that anyways.
Well, and I can think back to technicians that genuinely would be trying to give their all, right? Mm-hmm. And they would go to houses and their average ticket was just trash. And you knew they wanted it. You knew they wanted to learn and they were willing to do it. But what happens in nature is people revert back to what's comfortable, right? So if you go through the sales process, most technicians where they struggle is that part of the conversation where you're shifting from problem to price and solution options. Like that's usually the pretty big speed bump where they like, I got to talk about price now. And thinking back on those technicians, if we'd have had this tool, we really would have been able to sit down with them and go through it because again, they're very uncomfortable. So little tweaks make a big difference in the sales process, right? Are you starting with the lowest price option and working up? Well, that's probably that's going to have some negative effects on your close rate. Or you starting at the top, explaining it, and then working backwards, right? So there's all these different steps to the basic recipe that if your tech's not following can make a significant impact. And again, to Josh's point, sometimes techs do stuff that is not, you hadn't even thought about, and it's a winner. And when that is, you want to celebrate the crap out of that. You want to celebrate them, and then you want to have them teach the rest of the team on what that looked like.
Yeah, I would say, the other thing that I'll add to this is, we're a Tommy Mello company, and I've heard Tommy say over and over again, and I've heard a lot of good leaders say this, I want A players, right? And in my mind, an A player, it's attitude and aptitude, right? They might not be the best technician, but they want to get good. What our software allows people to do is you can actually go in and listen to your recordings, right? So if you're reviewing your own things and understanding, wow, I say this every time, I had a bad tick early on in sales, I would say honestly all the time. Honestly. And I wasn't out in the field as a technician. I was in an office with people. I had an agreement set up where a buddy of mine that sat across from me, he would kick me in the shin every time I said honestly. He's like, don't say that. What, you're not going to be honest with somebody? But again, for people that really want to get better, you're able to use this to review yourself, practice yourself, right? And it really, we want to enable those folks out in the field and to be as good as they want. My other little piece that I ran into, and this is for folks that are scaling their business, you might have, if you have 10 technicians, you might have one sales manager, right? Well, if you have Billy and he really wants to get good, do you have enough time for him? And that's tough, when you're trying to do all the other things and put out fires and heck, it's even worse if you're an owner, then you're following up on payments and doing all the other things. This enables them to actually practice on their own and get real feedback and see real results. So I've always said at some point in time in my career, if I was a trainer, I was just figuring out who to disappoint the least if they wanted to help, if I was good at my job, right? And this really gives you a tool to do that. It's never going to replace the people that are out there doing the training, the coaching, the leading. but man, can it make their lives a little bit easier.
Well, and A players practice. Like that's the difference. You know, the techs who just show up, do a job, hit the clock out, roll out, turn it all off. That's fine. It's a job and all that good stuff. But your A players don't operate that way. Your A players, they want to practice. They want to get better. They want to compete against themselves. They want to do better yesterday, you know, or today better than they did yesterday. And this tool allows them to do that. Plus, I'm assuming that if I have, let's say, 10 technicians that are all on this, I can probably see who's watching and who's going through their calls, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you could get
pretty good indicator.
Just transparency, right? I think it's amazing. You can see who records their calls and who don't. You know, that's and it's our system is not intended to be used on every single call. You know, house call. We want people to use it obviously because we feel like it's going to be a significant game changer for them. But it won't happen on all of them. Some people don't feel comfortable with it. That's fine. You know, that's okay as far as customers. Plus, you have the dual party consent rule here and there and everywhere. But no, I think this is one of those, like, it might not be a have to, but you get to. And if your focus is growth, it's going to be a game changer for you.
And your techs that don't want it, they're probably not closing at good rates, or their average ticket's probably not good.
Yeah, I've again, going back to my sales coaching days, it's like, well, I don't want you to go out on the road. Like, well, what are you saying? There's a reason people pay me to go out and do this with you, you know, and it's not to lose money. So, you know, I think when people kind of understand that all these tools, the trainings, the role plays, the uncomfortable situations that people might have to be in, it's all for their own good. If you have a good commission-based program. So this goes right along with that.
Getting better. Getting better.
Yeah, the other thing I'll put out there is, you know, with our software, there's not like a set script, if you will. So this is completely customizable to I think about industry as home services, but then there's like segments like HVAC, roofing. You can use whatever, you know, script you feel is the best. And then to this point, like, if you think you need to tweak it, like we have a great customer success team that can help you do that on the back end. You know, you want to be able to use it long enough to really understand what's working. I wouldn't suggest changing it once a week. I think that's a recipe for disaster. But, you know, a quarter, once a year, trying to review things from a leadership perspective and saying, you know, I've always liked to stop, start, keep. I don't know if you've done that with businesses in the past.
We do. We call it start, stop, continue.
Okay, very, very good.
Same concept. Yep.
Same nuance, right? But I think it's important for people out there.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So obviously the software, I dig it, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
But what does the future look like for FieldSpark? Like, what are some things coming down the pipeline?
Yeah. So expanding the role play, again, right now, it's just focused on closing. We want to be able to create longer and different scenarios within the role play. We have a couple different levels. If you think about this from a training perspective, nobody likes training. My son was trying to teach himself piano. And I was like, we'll get you lessons. He's like, I don't want lessons. I was like, he wants to learn on his own, which I can respect, and it's something our software kind of leans into, right? But he was like, he was trying to play Rachmaninoff's Fifth. I don't even know what it was. And I was like, buddy, like, this is not the right thing to start on, right? I was like, you should start with Old MacDonald Had a Farm. Just
chopsticks, yeah.
100%. There you go. But with the role play, you can kind of turn the levels up. There's different types of buyers that are out there as well. So we're working on adding different types of buyers. You might have an individual that's very focused on one specific component of sales, right? Somebody that's very cost prohibitive, like everything's about the money. Other buyers, like you want to practice against closing on the spot versus trying to close after the fact. So there's different scenarios that we're going to be adding to that role play that'll be really big. On more of the coaching side, just better metrics that we can see. So that's definitely on the roadmap for us. We also right now we have a standalone version of the app, so you can use it, on your mobile phone, on your tablet. So they're standalone, and then we also integrate with ServiceSite. So we're working on integrations with other CRMs to be able to upload data. It's very convenient as well. So I would say those are the major things up and coming at this point in time.
All right, very cool. So, do you guys have something going on with maybe a little bit of a pivot from FieldSpark to a different kind of branding?
Yeah, this has been an interesting one, right? And I wouldn't call it so much of a pivot. If you like, my email address has 34 Labs on it, and so I'd send a note to somebody, and they're like, "What's that?" So 34 Labs, it is a software lab for the home services industry. If you think about it, there are a lot of problems that are out there. FieldSpark was the first thing we've launched. We're supporting home service checklist right now. That's
just had Joe Cunningham on a week. I think we had him on the show that his podcast launched a couple weeks ago talking about the home service checklist.
There you go. So we feel like that's also a great piece of software for the space. We have some other things that are coming up, but I would say with the lab, what we want to be able to do is continually support that technology side of the people, process, and technology that scaling home services businesses want to use. And there are a lot of problems, and there are some solutions for them. But there can be better ones, and there's some problems with no solutions that we want to be able to ideate on. Quite honestly, work with a customer base. We're looking into advisory boards of individuals that actually want to work with us, that are thinking about technology solutions, being able to bring those ideas to life. So I would see us launching maybe 1 to 2 pieces of software a year, which is really, really exciting.
That is exciting.
Again, all stemming from the home services world and probably some home improvement, tangential industries. So more to come on that, but I don't want to give away too much too fast.
No, I think that's good, and I think it lays out a pretty good vision on what all of this stuff is going to look like in the future. And it's cool because there's not really anybody who's focused on the technology side of the home service space. Typically, it's one segment of it, not a variety of different solutions. So I think that's pretty awesome. So for anybody listening out there, how do they dive in and do a demo and check out FieldSpark?
Yeah, I will definitely. I want to be able to get you a QR code that you can show folks, so they'll take you in the demo and we can reach out to you. Obviously, we can share my email as well. You can reach out to me, and I can get you connected with our sales team. You can also go to it's 34labs.com. The number 3 spelled out FOUR labs.com. Or FieldSpark AI. You can easily book a demo right there.
All right, good. And all that stuff I'll make sure to include in the show notes. So anybody who's listening, you'll be able to go in the show notes and find this information. You can also email me if you got any questions or you can't figure it out. I can't imagine you can't figure out how to get to it, but whatever, I'm here to help. It's my job is to help and support. Man, Josh, anything closing that you'd like to bring up before we call it good for the day?
I think openly, with me being a little bit newer to the home services world, I got about 6 months in. It's always been something I grew up in a small town, right? So we helped my uncle build his house. Like, I laid block, I helped put the roof on, when I was 15. So it's full of just a world of great people, but technology is coming into this world, right? And I shouldn't say world, that industry. And the people that are embracing it, they're going to grow, and it's going to make things a bit easier for them. The folks that are scared of it, I just encourage people to learn about what it's actually doing. It is something that will actually empower people, so they can grow their businesses the way they want to grow them. That's probably my big closing remark. If you're scared of something, you might not understand it. So just take a peek.
Yes, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of people right now that are on the fence about any type of AI technology, and they're like, oh, it's going to replace humans. What? Listen, there used to be people that delivered ice, right. And then they invented the refrigerator, And now there's not anybody that delivers ice, but now there's people that manufacture refrigerators and deliver refrigerators and repair refrigerators. So it is all part of an evolution of what's going to happen in the world. And to Josh's point, pay attention, learn, and don't be scared of it. Go learn. And it maybe if it's not right for you right now, that's okay, but still understand the technology and how it can help your business. So Josh, I appreciate it, man. Thank you for coming and hanging out a little bit. Always excited to chat. I love talking about FieldSpark and learning all the new stuff you guys have going on. So, but I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, Justin, absolute pleasure. Thanks, man. I'm excited to see you at one of the next shows. I'm sure we'll bump into each other. And again, really appreciate you having me on the podcast here.
You've been listening to the Freedom Blueprint Podcast. Information is useless if not applied. So take what you've learned and go and implement it. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on social media at Freedom Blueprint for Home Services and hit the website at www.freedomblueprintpodcast.com. See you next time.